welcome to another Lap Go video. My name is Bart, and today we'll be taking the FIA F4 car and iRacing around the Bathurst circuit. Here's the hot lap. All right, so heading down the main straight now into the first corner. 90-degree left-hander, quite tricky. Very long exit is the most important thing. So, you know, how early you can get onto the throttle out of turn one is very important. But in this car, I find it's actually more about probably your minimum speed. So that being how much speed you carry through the corner, the momentum you carry through the corner. And the reason for that is just because it is a low-powered car. And is lighter, so you can carry more speed than you would in something like a GT car. And also because quite often here I find if you just focus on, okay, I'm going to really get stopped and turn and go for the exit, you just kind of you take too much speed out of it. And also the inside curb upsets the car quite a bit if you do anything more than just kind of kiss the edge of it. So as a result, I think you get rewarded here if you can push the entry a little bit and just focus on rolling a bit more speed through the middle of the corner. So braking is just before the 50-meter board on the right-hand side. Looking in, you want to look in about here-ish to meet the kind of around the back edge of the curb. See here, I get not quite onto the curb, but really close to it. And this is what you get rewarded for with this car here, is really carrying a lot of speed into the corner. So you watch quite an aggressive brake from me initially. Then in the middle, I drop it off really quick, turn the wheel. That really frees up the car as well. If you really trail the brake in, it kind of upsets it a bit into here. Now I'm able to pick up the throttle early, cleared the brake, carried a lot of speed into the corner. You're going to see I have a little bit of a snap, but it's okay. As long as you can get to full throttle, that's more important. Get on the exit curb. This exit curb is it's really tricky because you 100% want to use it, but you don't want to use all of it. So unlike in a GT car where maybe you can use a bit more, here you will bottom out pretty much when the floor, so the middle of the car, is touching this lip here, kind of the higher edge of the red and white, the top of this red and white curve. So you can't run out all the way. You can see here it's kind of on the edge. You can hear and you can also see the bumps just in that section of the curb, and that's just because I run on this part of the car near here just for a fraction of a second, and that's about just okay. You can't keep scraping it along, so you can't push it all the way out. If you just kind of just on the edge like this, you can be able to quickly bring it over. You know, I might have gained a little bit more speed because I was able to pick up throttle a bit early and take a little bit more distance on the exit, but you don't want to sit on that bumpier part of the curb. That's pretty much the limit right there. So kind of keeping half your car on the curb and half your car off is a good benchmark, I'd say. Get off before the end because it's a big drop, so we don't really want to just fall down and thud off that. Now keep the car on the right-hand side of the track. This is quite important here on all these straights. Pay attention to where I keep the car because the road is not flat and this car bounces around a lot, likes to bottom out. There's a bump here you can see there. But I find it's a lot better to keep it on the right here. Partly also then we're not putting steering lock in early on the straight and just stalling on the acceleration of the car. Also because if you go over the crest of the hill and kind of turn over this bit, it kind of helps you a little bit and you're not going to hit the bumps. So just kind of follow the crest over the top to the left-hand side. And just about as I get to this little service road here, that's when I've got the car fully left on the white line. All right, so breaking down to turn 2. Very tricky corner this. One of the trickiest on the track, if not the trickiest, I think, in this car, in terms of the ability to lose lap time easily. Braking reference, you got this 50 board and you got this white line here, so they're both pretty good. For me, braking I feel like I'm braking just after. You can see I'm braking pretty much at the 50-meter board. Important to brake late here. It's a tricky one because it's the kind of corner where it's all about carrying speed. It's a long corner. You're relying on the aero a lot, and it's uphill, and it's cambered. And so because of that, you want to get on throttle early. You really want a good exit to get that hill, right? But if you don't push the braking late here, you kind of end up too tight to the inside curb, which we'll get to in a second. So you have this really like short, late, aggressive braking phase. So pretty aggressive for me there. 50%, let's say, braking. If you brake much harder, you kind of unsettle the platform of the car. 50, 60% brake pressure. Down to 4th, but quickly jump off. You can see I'm already off the brakes by the time I'm level with, before I'm even level with the start of the inside curb. And see, the corner looks quite narrow at this point, but it widens up a lot. And what we're trying to do with the way we're braking into there is we're trying to meet the inside curb here. Right, see this bit of new tarmac? This little patch here? That's where we're trying to meet it. If you brake too early or you brake too much, you shouldn't be able to turn the car so you're hitting the inside curb. If you're turning in, you're hitting the inside curb, you have to turn out, then you need to brake a bit later, or you need to brake brake a little bit less and take some speed out, carry more speed into the corner. A bit of both can quite often be the case, but I think more often than not here is brake a bit later. So try and brake quite late. If you find, I'm braking later, but now I can't get the car in, it's like unsettled, it's moving around, it's locking up on the entry, then you need to drop the brake earlier. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but you need to drop the brake because it's quite easy here if you carry the brake into this point that you unsettle the car and kind of overwork the tires. Get off the brake, just let the car sit into the camber. You're always like just slowing the car down enough so you can get turned into this part of the corner, and then you get hooked up in this camber groove on the inside. And once you get hooked up in that groove, like we are now, just pretty much once you get to the inside curb, then you can pick up throttle. And when you pick up throttle, be pretty aggressive about it. You can see I'm always straight away onto full because there's plenty of grip. You're not going to slide. The only thing you'll worry about here is how wide you're going to run the exit. And you should be forced your left tires to run up this curb. Again, you don't want the floor, so the middle of the car running on this, but you want your left tires 100% on that. All right. So we've gone through there nicely. Get all the way over to the right-hand side as you go into here. So tricky part of the track. This double left. Key here really is this isn't much of a corner in this car, unlike, again, most GTs and things you'll be driving around here. But don't worry about being tight to the inside here. You see, I completely ignore it because this corner is not important. What's important is the next left. The next left is your last braking zone for a long time, for a good like 20 seconds plus. So the exit out there is super, super important, okay, as well as the speed we carry through there and making sure we're not upsetting the car. So to give ourselves the best braking for this left-hander that's coming up, we just need to focus on having that as our priority rather than worrying about that left-hander we just went through. So at this point, I want to be as wide as possible, and I want to be braking pretty much as late as possible because if you brake early here, you usually strike the inside wall, or you get on throttle too early and you understeer and you have a bit of a sliding exit. You want to try and delay your brake as much as possible without unsettling the car, which can be tricky. There's no exact reference, but it's pretty much a bit before the white line kind of meets up with you is where you'll start braking, a bit after this left-hand apex. So what am I doing through here? I'm aiming to be here. Okay. If I'm going to go through here, I'm braking a straight, come diagonal as we're turning up the hill here to have my widest point be this point here. I know it's quite tricky. So we got there and we're starting braking that now. Looking to try and get the car as straight as we can. The camber will kind of help you a bit, so you won't have to put that much lock in left. The track will kind of steer you towards the inside. But yeah, trying to point towards there. And then with that in mind, pretty much there is where I'm braking. That's where I'm aiming for. So I don't really want to go tight towards it there. I want to try and stay on the right, like I do here, and open up as much as possible. Just keep in mind, don't go fully to the right here. This part of the track, to this kind of cambered a bit here. There's a crest here. If you go over here, you're on a dirty part of the track and it's got the wrong camber, so you don't really want to be here. But pretty much in this part of the track here, main thing, like I said, is focus on trying to get the positioning the car as flat and straight as possible for the braking zone coming up. That's the priority. Try and get lock out of the steering as I do here. Quite tricky to do. Pretty much turn off the white line. You don't want to go past it. Just again, if the camber's wrong, it'll drive you away from the corner. Down to third gear. It shouldn't be a really late aggressive brake either. I found if you really try and hit the brakes, like I said, we want to brake as late as possible without upsetting the car. Again, if you slow the car down early, you get punished. But if you just slam on the brakes really late, it just kind of locks up. So with that in mind, I'm trying to push the braking while not braking that hard. So you can see it's not a very hard brake for me. It's about rolling on about 20, 30%. That's partly because we're turning. We're uphill. The grip's not amazing here. It's bumpy. But also because we want to keep the platform of the car really settled. We don't really want to smash on the brake and dive the nose forward and then upset the car. So off the brake now, you can see this part. Look at the way the car kind of dives into this camber here. So that's your cue to get off the brake, this crest here, where we get into this camber, because we need to just roll the speed in now, a bit like the previous right we talked about, just about rolling the speed into this camber corner. You should be forced to pick up the throttle here. It should be a case a bit like the second corner, where if you don't pick up the throttle, you're going to hit the inside wall or the inside curb in that case. So you should have to pick up the throttle here. You can see it. I just nudged the wall a tiny bit on this lap, but I hit it cleanly, so it's okay. But yeah, you don't want to be any tighter than this, and you should be able to turn as much as you can, but get on throttle to push yourself out. And you can see how early the throttle pick up as well. It's before I've even really got to the inside white line. Force the car out all the way to the right. It's not really a big issue. You can bring it over to the left a little bit because this bump's quite nasty, as you'll see in a second. It kind of jumps the car, so you can definitely bring the car over to the left if you have time and square it off. Still trying to run the car out as wide as possible out of this this left-hand corner. But if you can bring the car maybe half a car to the left and then back, sometimes it can help not bounce the car. But on this lap, I thought it was easier to just take a shorter distance. What I would recommend is do one or the other. So don't go halfway. Don't run the car here. Either just keep it tight and try and point the car that way, so when you jump, it's pointing the right direction, or turn the car fully to this part of the track here in the middle of the track. So you kind of go around the bump, but you have to be able to get the car pointed right. Otherwise, you just take extra distance. All right. Just be smooth with the steering now. This is all easy flat, but we're just trying to make sure we use all the track. Bring the car over to the right-hand line on the left-hand side. That's all we need to do. Smooth up the hill. Don't touch the inside curb. Don't need to. Nicely run against the outside curb there. You don't need to bring the car over to the right like you would in a faster car. There's no point. We don't need to do it. So we're just taking less distance here, less input on the wheel. Again, we don't need to use all that extra track there. It should be flat for us. Just try and meet the end of the curbing here. And it should be flat, no problems. Let the car run out to the right-hand side on the white line. Turn in pretty much where this Dick Smith sign starts, or the end of the H here. It's the crest of the hill. You don't want to turn in too early because then you end up too tight. If you turn too late here, say if you turn in there-ish, then you just kind of slide the front because you're going down the hill at that point. So you kind of want to rotate the car before you get over the crest because that's the front's more grip. Rotate the car, and the car will slide down the hill a little bit. Touch the left-hand curb just with your left-hand tires. Run out here. You don't need to ride that curb. It's really high and can unsettle the car. You can kind of kiss it if you want. Worst case scenario, if you feel like you have to run out there. But because we don't have to take it flat, I would recommend not doing it. Now, make sure we use all the track here. This is quite important. A lot of people don't use all the wall on this side. You can really maximize track width here. Look how far left I go here. And then we want to try and point it right. And that's the luxury we have of this car being light and quite maneuverable, is we can get all the way to the left here and we can prepare this. So we want the car pointing as far right as possible down the hill. So that's my reference there, this kind of tree. Okay. So, tricky section now as we go back down the hill. Kind of lift as I go over the crest because there's no point putting any power down. Accelerating. Braking now. Kind of as you land. If you brake here, you're just in the air, so it doesn't really do anything. But pretty much braking as you land here. Again, all the braking here is none of it's going to be too heavy, because if you brake really hard, you just lock the tire because you're having to turn and it's quite loaded and it's unsettled the car the whole time down the hill. We will try to make bits of the track where you try and get the car straight for a fraction of a second to help stop it, but really you can't get a true braking zone. It's very grippy. So with that in mind, it's much more about just that modulating that softer brake, trying to not lock up. If you start locking the tires a bit, that's a lot worse than missing a bit of braking performance, because then the car won't turn. You'll just push at the bottom of the hill and probably end up in a wall. So with that in mind, and also it helps you carry the momentum, carry the speed. A nice brake here. I'm trying to feed into it. See, I feed into it quite softly, not aggressively. That's everything in this section. Just be smooth. Again, it's quite rushed. Like, a lot's happening in a short time, but you have to be calm with the car. Don't be aggressive and hacking with the steering. Brake. Now we're going to get this kind of direction here. Brake down to fourth gear and come off the brake because I have to turn through this bit now. So I had this like little short braking zone almost here where I point the car that way. When I land, the car gets to the left. Use this left curve as much as possible just so we can prepare the car for this section. And again, you come out of the brake as you turn left, and then as you straighten up for that fraction of a moment now, as we kind of come off the curb into this right-hander, we go a little bit harder on the brake again. So if you want to think about it, the easiest way to think about it probably is two braking zones. So, okay, braking now, off the brake, now I need to rotate the car. Now I need to brake again, back on the brakes to about 30% there, down to third gear, off again, roll into this camber. You'll still be braking, so I'm just trailing a little bit here. Just try and keep the car as far right as possible. We're going to be fully on this curb, but basically having the right tire on this white line is ideal. If you're pushed out here, you're in a really bad position for the run down the hill. So I brake just a little bit into here just to help the car get turned in. But the main thing is we kind of just want to roll the car in with the smallest amount of steering lock as possible as we go down the hill here. Try not to upset the car too much. You should be picking up the throttle as you go down into this compression, a bit like Red Bull Ring last corner or something like that. With the landing now, full throttle. The car will get upset if you have a lot of steering lock on as well. So that's what's really important, to open this up and reduce the steering lock we have on through here. And also try and roll as much speed as possible through this left once you've got the positioning right. All right, run the car out to the wall. You can even run dirt if you want. As long as you don't touch the wall, you're okay. Should be easy to not hit the wall on the left-hand side. Main thing here is just, you can see how short the distance, but there's no point going all the way to the right, but just opening up a little bit so you can keep the car tight left here. I aim to be on this drain through the left-hander, pointing in this direction again to prepare the last part of this section. This is flat, then lifting now, and this is all just about keeping the positioning right. You could brake later here, but it's not about braking later. This exit is much more important, being such a long exit down to the chase. Also, the fact you've got to remember that this kind of entry, downhill entry, really tricky braking zone, if you push it, you get punished a lot. So with that in mind, braking quite early here, lifting, just trying to prepare the car, keep the car over to the right. Again, that drain's quite a good reference on the right-hand side. We just want to be tight to this wall when the Falcon branding starts. Braking down a straight line. See, I've got lock off. And I could only do that because I lifted out early. I could have been flat for a bit longer, but I would have had lock on. It would have upset the car. So get the car in a position where you can get it flat. We can get it going in a straight line for a moment, pointing towards pretty much that Falcon sign up there. Braking down a third gear. Start the turn as you go down the hill. It's going to want to lock on the inside the whole way through. On this lap, I get a little bit of locking, but I just about get away with it. If you can have no locking, that's perfect, but pretty much you're always going to have locking into here. All you can do is reduce the steering lock you're putting in and reduce the braking, but so it will feel like you have to brake quite early. And it's, like I said, if you feel like you're locking, you're probably not doing much wrong. Just it's just very tricky. It's that kind of corner. Just try and keep it as settled as possible, and try not to lock. The inside left is okay. It's not too bad. But if you lock the whole front axle and kind of push the front axle into the corner, when you turn left, you basically have no front, and the car will just slide. You won't be able to rotate, and that'll really hurt your exit. You might run into the wall on the exit of this corner. So just try and keep it just under the limit on the brakes a bit. It's really tricky though. Down to third gear, like I said, when you get into third, punch at the end of this rubber mark here, you can turn in. Always important for this section, have it really tight to the wall. At this point, you can see that's kind of the nearest point there. Maybe I could have been a little bit tighter in this lap, but I do manage to carry quite a bit of speed, which is good. And that's your throttle pickup, pretty much. When the inside wall, let's say, I don't say ends, but when it kind of jumps down, when it becomes smaller, and you can start to see your exit, that's kind of your throttle pickup point there. You can see how aggressive my throttle pickup was. If you're slow here, one of those corners, the slower you are, the more understeer you're going to get. Okay, and you're always fighting understeer here, pretty much. So you really want to get on quickly, even though it might upset the rear, but most of the time it's not an issue. So quickly onto full throttle there. Use all the track. You should be forced all the way up to the wall. Again, tricky exit there. Now bring the car over to the left. This is quite important. Don't lead the car over to the right, because if you lead it over to the right, it's going to be hard to get back over. Get back over to the left, and you're going to be on the bumpy part of the track. So get the car left for that kink. Stay on the left side of the crest. If you're on the middle of the road, you're bumping on the middle of the road here. So that's why I want to get over to the left, so we're on the correct side for the end of the straight. So just stay here. I'm not fully on the left white line, because I actually find that's a little bit bumpier than here. So I kind of stay in this half of the track, right in the middle of the left-hand side of the track is kind of my reference here. We don't need to use really the runoff on the left-hand side to open up the chase. So there's no point. Just turn in flat out. Kit the car as far to the right as possible, parallel to the white line for the braking here. And down to third gear now. Really tricky in this car, I find. Chase. Braking, this 100-meter board is pretty much a bang-on reference. You should feel like you're braking just after it, potentially. I mean, I'm braking at it here, but I think if you get it perfect, it should feel like you really push the braking zone. You can really, really chase the braking here, really tack the brakes, which you can't do at many other points in the lap. Hitting about 90% brake pressure, maybe more here. Bleed out as you come up the hill. Don't hit the inside curb. Do not hit it at all. And that's, again, why it's better to be slightly later on the brakes. I'd rather you be a bit later, because your biggest fear here is hitting the inside curb and running off on the right. And if you brake a bit later, generally you're going to avoid that, because you're going to kind of delay when you turn it. So if you can brake a little bit later and carry a bit more speed, that's really important here. Early throttle pickup, not as important as carrying momentum through here as well in this car. So third gear should feel quite fast, actually, this car. And you should be on throttle around where this apex part of the curve is. Force yourself out, not an off track here. You kind of run on the grass a bit. I was a lot of the laps, to be honest. You should be forced all the way out to the right hand side. This little right hand kink's easy in this car. Don't worry about that. Bring the car to the right hand side, nice and early. Braking for the last corner, really, really tricky. Downhill braking, very easy to lock up, very easy to slide the front, very easy to hit the inside curb as well. And if you hit the inside curb, it will kind of destroy your lap a little bit, which is not a good thing to have at the end of the lap, obviously. So with that in mind, again, it's one of those comments. It's better to be on the edge of braking too late, like just sitting on the edge of that. Because if you're slightly too early, you hit the inside curb and it's really bad. If you're slightly too late, you miss the inside curb by a bit more and it's not the end of the world. All right. So braking wise, you have this telephone or this light post here. I would probably use that, to be honest. Just before the 50-meter board is a pretty good reference, and you got the 100-meter board. So I like braking just before I come up to that. So it's about 70 meters before the corner, 75 meters. Again, fairly hard braking here. Trying to unsell the car too much, about 80% brake pressure. Down to third gear. Clear the brake. It should be quite late when you clear the brake. So it's a lot of straight line braking. You see here, I'm in a straight line for a long period of time. The track kind of deviates to the right a little bit. Once I get to this this little grid marker here, I'm turning in, rotate, and I'm always trying to meet this, the end of the curb here, where the white line is here. You can see when I slow down, I just about miss the inside curb. If you hit that inside curb, really bad. So that's about the early braking. All right. and you're always forced to pick up the throttle here. Like, you can't pick up the throttle any earlier. If you pick up the throttle any earlier, you probably hit the inside curb, or you're pointing the wrong way. So, pretty aggressive throttle pick up there. Push it out. Can use the outside curb. It does kind of like wheel spin a little bit on the outside curb, but it's okay to use for a little bit. And then just run in a straight line, and that's the end of your lap at Bathurst. Okay, so that takes us towards the end of the video now. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section below. And you can also find the Coach Dave Academy Discord in the YouTube video description. My name is Bart, and I'll see you next week. See ya.